Hello, today's whiteboard lesson is about apostrophes. In my 20s, I had a boyfriend who could never remember the word apostrophe, so he would call them commas that you raise up high. And I would like to point out to you that that is my former boyfriend and not my current husband, because some things matter to me, and one of them is knowing what an apostrophe is and how to use it. So let's look at today's whiteboard lesson. We have a few examples up here. I would point out to you that if this isn't enough for you, there's the chapter in your book textbook. You can use the magic Google machine to look up all the rules of apostrophes, get some more examples. But the basics here are, if you have a singular noun, so one person, one thing, and it is owning or possessing something, you would add an apostrophe S to the end to show that possession. If there's a woman named Samantha and she has a briefcase, I hope it's made out of non-animal products, what you would do at the end of her name is you would add an apostrophe S to make it Samantha's briefcase. Easy enough. Same thing. Let's say you've got a brother and he has an iPod. You would want to say it is my brother's apostrophe S iPod. If there's a coyote howling "oh" in the distance, you would say I'm a little afeard of that coyote apostrophe S, coyote's howl. So very easy to just add the apostrophe S. That's singular. You've got one person, one thing that is possessing or owning. We might have a fox that has a tail, a bushy, lovely tail. We would say it is the fox's tail. Things sometimes get a little bit confusing, though, when it comes to using an apostrophe when you have plurals. So let's say there's a whole bunch of foxes and they are frolicking around, and you're admiring the plump bushiness of their tails. And so you have foxes. The first thing you have to do is make it plural. So fox, when there's more than one, you add an ES to the end. So foxes, you'll notice that word already ends at S now because it's plural. The fox's tails. All you really have to do there is add the apostrophe after the S. That indicates we have more than one thing, person, fox, that possesses or owns something. Here's some other examples of plural nouns with possession. So we have soldiers, a whole bunch of soldiers, and they all stay in the same tent. The soldiers, apostrophe after the S, tent. Houses have chimneys. So we have a bunch of houses, a whole neighborhood. We're admiring their beautiful chimneys with small puffs of smoke coming out of them. The houses, put the apostrophe after the S, chimneys. We have a whole bunch of cars. Perhaps we're admiring the cars' tires. We're looking at a whole parking lot full of cars and we're thinking, wow, them some fancy tires. So you would say cars, put the apostrophe after the S, tires. The important thing when you're trying to figure out where do I put this apostrophe is you have to ask yourself, how many things are we talking about? If it's only one, you're going to do the apostrophe S. However, if it's more than one, so first thing you do is form your plural. What does that plural look like? Usually it ends in an S. You just put the apostrophe after it. Of course, because English is a funky little language that likes to mess you up, sometimes you're going to find an irregular kind of noun that when it's made plural does not already end in an S. So we would have one child, but if we have a whole bunch of them romping around on the playground, we would have children. If you want to show the possession there, you have to add the apostrophe S. So it is plural, but it does not already end in S, so we've got to add the apostrophe S. Super confusing are surnames that naturally, just from the way they are constructed, they already end in an S. So you have to think to yourself, am I talking about one member of the Jones family, for example, or am I talking about all the members, the many people in the Jones family? So if we have Mr. Jones, we know that's one guy. I imagine him has a little bit crotchety and he does not want you in his yard. So we are talking about Mr. Jones. When it already ends in an S like that, you can just put the apostrophe after it. Some grammatical books, some breakdowns of the rules would suggest to you, you might also, in these cases, you can do an apostrophe S, so it's Mr. Jones, that's a singular noun, and if you want to put the apostrophe S on the end, just like you did up here for Samantha or brother, you could do it that way. But if you like to just do the apostrophe after that, you could make a case for yourself. Then, if we have a whole bunch of Joneses, we have the Jones family. When we talk about them in the plural, you have to put an ES after the ES, which is very awkward. So you would have the Joneses' yard. So all you need to do there is put the apostrophe after the S. When in doubt, if you are super confused and you don't have access to a resource that might help you, you can just look at whatever word it is and decide, is it singular or plural? That will help. But you also can say, does it already end in an S or does it not? And in the case like this, it already ends in an S, it already ends in an S. You would be okay with just sticking the apostrophe after the S. We also use apostrophes when we make contractions. So when we take two distinct words, we blend them into one, and in that process, we drop some letters. You put in an apostrophe to show where the contraction or the dropped letters have taken place. So who is, when it's contracted, becomes whose. So to show where we dropped out the I there, you can put in an apostrophe. Same thing for do not becomes don't, and you want to show that you dropped out the letter O there. So you're going to put in the apostrophe to indicate where the contraction took place. Lesser known rules, but they still are going to come up in your writing, would be when you have something like the 1970s. So you've got numbers and then they're followed by an S, or just the 70s. I have to say, until recently, my habit was to always stick an apostrophe in there. When I was saying like the 1970s, I would put an apostrophe before the S. That, in fact, is not correct. So the way it's written right now, without me adding any apostrophes, that's how it should be. In this one, though, when you're dropping off the 19, it's almost like you're doing a contraction because you're omitting something. So in this case, you would put an apostrophe before 70s or 60s or 50s or whatever decade you want to be referring to, but you don't need one before that S. We do have a case in a little phrase like mind your P's and Q's, however, where we need to put in apostrophes simply because it is so hard to read this without the apostrophes to help us. So just visually, as readers, we need the Q of an apostrophe. Haha, the P's and the Q's. So mind your P's and Q's. In this case, when you have small, non-capitalized letters and you're making them plural, yes, you do need to put an apostrophe in there. And then I would also remind you just down here, one last little thing when it comes to the word its. Even when its is showing possession, you know, the dog wagged its tail, you might think to yourself, it's showing possession, there's some ownership, a dog has a tail, and you might think, okay, I need to put in an apostrophe. Well, of course, to break all rules and to really make your head spin around crazily, its, when it's possessive, does not have an apostrophe in it. The only time you see an apostrophe in its is when you are contracting it is and you're dropping out that I. You would do IT apostrophe S. So it's only ever means it is. And I have on occasion received something bizarre like this in student work where clearly uncertain of where to put the apostrophe, the student has just opted to put the apostrophe everywhere. So there's one before the S, there's one after the S, trying to cover all those bases. What you need to do here is not dare to ever do that, please, because that word doesn't exist in the English language. And although you may be fun and you may be clever, you don't actually get to make up new words just yet. Once you become famous, go right ahead. There you go, there's a summary of apostrophes. Like I say, there's more examples and you can find more detailed breakdowns of all the rules. If you just Google apostrophe rules or apostrophe guidelines, you will get 10 kabillion hits online and lots of examples. So good luck. Remember that when you write your essays and turn them in to me, I do take off points for missing or misused apostrophes. So it behooves you to pay attention to this stuff.